Hey everyone, how's it going? This is Kill10Rats and welcome to Indie Lookout, where I'd like to invite you to keep a lookout for A House of Many Doors, an upcoming title by Pixel Trickery Games coming to Steam in early February of 2017. The studio behind A House of Many Doors effectively consists of lead designer and writer Harry Tufts, artist Catherine Unger and composer Zach Beaver, who also created the music for Project Zomboid. The game is set in the house, a parasitic dimension that steals from other worlds and which you explore in a steampunk train that scuttles around on mechanical legs. It fairly undeniably draws its influences from Sunless Sea, albeit with its own unique spin on the idea of a 2D exploration game, adding combat elements from FTL and influences drawn from the writing and setting of Planescape Torment. A House of Many Doors has been kickstarted and received additional funding and production assisting through Fail Better Incubates, an initiative by the design studio behind Fallen London and Sunless Sea. So in case you are wondering how they're feeling about a game that's at first glance quite similar to their own work, they throw money and support at it. Pixel Trickery has graciously provided me with a beta key for the game, which allows me to make you aware of the game's existence a bit ahead of its February 3rd Steam unlock, so please bear in mind that this is beta gameplay footage you see here, and anything depicted is in a pre-release state and still subject to change. There's no price point set on Steam yet, but I'd expect it to be somewhere in the neighborhood of Sunless Sea's launch pricing, which would seem entirely reasonable to me. And with all that out of the way, allow me to show you at least a little bit of the character creation and gameplay experience that A House of Many Doors will lay before you. One final little caveat on my own behalf before we start: this is not the start of a new Let's Play series, this is a look at and keep a lookout for A House of Many Doors. Even though, having said that, I would definitely not rule out this becoming a Let's Play series post full release of the game in early February, perhaps analog to what we did with Sunless Sea and our initial Captain Rutherford, where we explore it perhaps once a week for about an hour and see how far we get before we perish horribly. But now finally, and definitely and perhaps a little foolishly, off we go into the house, where we are most definitely not welcome. A gruesome headache. Broken glass crunches behind your eye. Two concerned faces swim into view. Can you remember your name? Asks the bolder of the two. And we remember that we were called Kill10Rats, of course. Good. The bald-headed man sits back. Rutherford. His name comes to you in a flash. You raise your fingers to your temple and brush over a rough bandage. Somewhere beneath you can feel a tender hole in your skull, still oozing. Bandits, says the other man. Monobrow. Bradley is his name. Ambushed us, boarded us, and took a memory right out of your head. And we're already seeing the surreal Sunless Sea influences here a tiny bit in the writing when it comes to removing memories by drill implement. Where are we? You're in the house, says Bradley. The captain is disoriented, not an idiot. Rutherford turns to you. We're out in the darkness, just a few rooms west of the City of Keys. We didn't get far. Okay, just for the sake of figuring out what's going on around us. What is the house? Rutherford and Bradley exchange brief, worried glances. Must have dislodged something when they yanked the memory out, mutters Rutherford. The house is a parasite dimension, says Bradley. Endless dark rooms and locked doors. It steals things and people from other worlds. Ah yes, it's all coming back to you now. Why are we out here? Exploration, says Bradley. He pauses. You had some damn fool notion about escaping the house. Impossible, of course, but a question that had gnawed at your soul for years nevertheless. One day you bought a kinetopede on your own, a clanking train on mechanical legs, hired a ragtag crew and launched yourself into darkness. So here we get a a view on what the potential ending of the game might be. I'm assuming there is a variety of them. Events that can make you retire one of your characters and possibly follow up with the next one. I don't know whether that mechanic is actually in the game because I haven't made it that far yet. What happened to my head? Didn't you know? Rutherford laughs. That's how they get the memories out. He mimes a drill. Let's chase down those memory thieves. They stole a very specific memory from you. You're curious as to what? Bradley smashes his fist into his palm. We'll chase them down and hang them. Steady on, says Rutherford. You're in no condition to go chasing down miscreants, Kiltenny Rattus. I want to make sure your brain wasn't too badly damaged. Let me ask you some questions about your past. And this is where we actually venture into the creation of our character. So we'll answer a few questions as to see what the variety is like. And we already see a very appealingly drawn set of potential faces for our captain here. And I think we're going to go with this fine gentleman here because I like the cut of his jib. A bandaged face stares back from the mirror. A childhood. A wise decision. Rutherford sits opposite, a notepad in front of him. Tell me about your childhood. You had your own little niche in the tangled ecosystem of the City of Keys. What was it? And there is a large variety of potential backgrounds that we can come from that we later on augment with our career and our choice of further path in life. Let's just, in this particular case, go with the comfortable? No. I had something picked out for this. Apprentice heir. Yes, we want to be a snobbish sort of rich fella, which will also give us an extra 500 guineas. You grew up in one of the most prominent noble families of the city. You were heir to an impressive title, a sense of self-importance, and most importantly, money. And your professional life, asks Rutherford. You grew up, of course, as children sometimes do. Your childhood slipped away and you earned your keep as... And here we again have a large variety of possible careers open to us that will also impact the story in just about every single case. And we are going to be an adventurer. You've never had a proper job because, we're in the money already. You've been traveling the house all your life, though you've never led an expedition. You've hitched rides, done dirty work, and risked your neck all to see as much of this great dark world as possible. An escape. Maybe you left that way of life in disgrace, maybe you retired in honor, maybe you simply got bored. It doesn't matter. The fact you left is what's important. Your work cannot have wholly been your life, says Rutherford. What was the other claim on your time? And we can pick a pastime here or a social focus. So we will, in this case, go with occultism, because I feel like this might be interesting in this setting. You gave yourself to the study of the occult. You pored over forbidden tomes and learned strange secrets. Good news, everyone, says Rutherford. Your brain is mostly intact. Lodgings unlocked. Your lodgings can be found in the City of Keys. You gain 3 fragments of epiphany. A memory was stolen from you. Whatever memory they took from you must have been important, says Bradley. Let's get it back. It's probably just a memory of happier days, says Rutherford, bored. Memory thieves can sell that sort of thing for a fortune on the black market. Not worth risking our lives over. You still look a little woozy, Captain, says Bradley. Do you want us to help you get back up to speed with the day-to-day running of things? Yes, let's get the tutorial tips here so I can actually point out a few things. Bradley nods. The last we saw of the memory thieves, they were heading directly north of here, probably up to Clayton's Mill to sell your memory on the black market. Perhaps we can catch them. And we can also talk to our Surgeon Rutherford here, as the speech bubble indicates, or to our record keeper Bradley Baggs, or Sandy Brackett, our navigator. First off though, let's check out the movement controls. Press W to move forward and S to reverse, AD to turn left or right, and the upper deck crew are these guys. They are important characters that can level us up, similar to the system in Sunless Sea as well, where we can spend apprehensions. And the lower deck crew is just additional staff that will be available in combat and will hopefully not die horribly on our behalf. This is our Heartlight, which slows the rate with which our sanity drops, and we can naturally turn it off to hide from other vehicle and also to save fuel, but that will drive us all merrily insane. We also have a map that we can pull up that tells us where a few important points of interest are. Here's the City of Keys, where our lodgings are located. Here is the location of the memory thieves. So I'd like to show off some of the combat systems in the game, which means I would like to chase down the memory thieves. Let's flip this off to the side so we can actually see where we're going. And the layout is always relatively similar here. We can always have it's like we always have a square room so far from what I've seen, with 4 entrances and exits, this being the House of Many Doors. And we can have these random encounters. This doesn't seem particularly aggressive, so let's see what it is. Deserters. Okay, they are aggressive. Desperate folk indeed. All that awaits them at home is a brisk interrogation and a hanging, and they know it. They want your money and they want your fuel. We can try to flee. We can also pay them off. Or we can get into combat with them, which I'd rather not. So I'm going to try to retreat into the shadows, which means we'll switch our heartlight off. The heartlight has been doused and your kinetobead slams into lurching, scrabbling movement. You skitter into the darkness before your enemy can react. So let's get the hell out of here. And let's switch our heartlight back on again. We'll have to turn around here a little bit. Is our deserter... Yeah, this not deserters, our memory thieves. This should be them, actually. Your navigator will sometimes update the map with nearby locations. This happens more often if you have a high insight stat. That is nice to know. Alright, let's go after these guys. Now the heartlight switches itself back on. And there they are. The memory thieves. You recognize their kinetobead instantly. It's much sleeker than your own cobbled together mess. They're not trying to run, they're barreling straight towards you, legs all a skitter. We can actually try to reason with them here, but since we want to have a look at what the combat is like, we shall initiate frantic piano music. And you know, this is the part where it's getting a little FTL-y from what I can tell. Not that I've played the game a whole lot, but it looks fairly familiar. Combat is turn-based. We can queue up actions and they will play out simultaneously at the end of the turn. And we can also have movement actions here, because if we get within 50 meters of them, like this is the line that demonstrates how far we are away from them or how close we are to being able to flee, we can board them. Like we get a boarding action with our guard captain here and our guard that can then board over into their ship and give them hell. But first off, we shall advance a little bit so we get a better shot off at them. And I think I would like to actually try and get in boarding range for the next turn. It's not quite going to pan out. They're getting closer. Distance represents how far away the enemy is. Click the arrow buttons to advance or retreat, but remember this costs an action. When you're under 50 meters from the enemy, they can send their guards to board you, or you can do the same to them. Your weapons are also more accurate when distance is lower. Let's fire at them for now. Trying to think, maybe we want to actually shoot their gunner most of all. Yeah, I think that's what we're gonna do. Let's... No one in the weapon bay? What? Excuse me? Why are you not in the weapon bay, gunner? This hasn't happened before. Okay, please move. Okay, this should work out then. Ready, aim, fire. There we go. And we score a hit. Let's see what they do. They seem to be aiming at this spot, and they also score a hit on some of our crew here and some of our infrastructure. Their engineer is running in for repairs, but we can do that as well. Right, you go there. Yeah, that's the end turn button, I see. Let's fire again, maybe? Yeah, let's fire again. But let's also advance and board them. Hopefully we don't fire at our own guys once we have boarded them. We should be able to get the boarding prompt now. What do we have to select? Yes, we have to select the guard. Oh no. Okay, that seems to have worked out. I was a little worried that this might actually bring our guard captain into a position where they are getting hit by our own shots. Let's go for their captain, maybe, if we can. And let's board our other guard over there. That seems fine. Do we want to shoot this turn? I think we do, actually. Let's shoot here. That should hopefully keep us out of the radius. Oh, okay. Our troops hopefully will have made it back. I think they do, though, because they are surrendering. They're not exploding quite yet. So, are we going to grant them mercy? I think we do. Morality and practicality. Morality and practicality are this time in agreement. You climb down to the floor, your boots sending up a great cloud of dust. Don't leave the circle of safety provided by your heartlight. The dark would eat you alive. The memory thief captain is a typical bandit, an odd collection of scavenged clothes, goggles, bandana. He hands you the battered box that holds your stolen memory, and as he does so, his sleeve lifts. Strange. He has a tattoo of a skull with a line slashed through one eye socket. An odd tattoo. Looking him up and down, you notice other discrepancies. His fingernails too clean, his hair too neat, no scars on all his teeth. He turns and hurries back to his kinetopede before you can ask further questions. So we've gained a box of our memories and 10 apprehensions. And we can check the box at our leisure. Apprehensions, the sum total of what you've learned about the house, facts, secrets, fears. Use them to increase your stats or make progress in the main story. How do you gain apprehensions? Find new places, write poetry, complete quests. Yes, indeed, we can write poetry. This is actually one of the aspects that I'd like to show off because it's so incredibly hilarious. It's essentially something we can do in our lodgings in the City of Keys, so that's probably where we should be heading now. And it's procedurally generated, so it's actually going to... Okay, that gave me a bit of a... Yeah, no, wasn't scared at all. It's actually procedurally generating the poem, so there is a poem at the end of all this that you will be able to read, and you can even determine what style of poetry it's going to be like by choosing what type of memory you are going to craft it from. Now let's see, the City of Keys is over there, so we are going to get our wiggle on here and try not to have too many random encounters. You might be able to notice that compared to Sunless Sea, I think the fuel situation is actually a little more forgiving, or it feels that way, than in that game, at least when it comes to consumption, or maybe it's just because we start out with more. Okay, it's showing us what all of this means. Yeah, hull, sanity, fuel, I think we get the general gist of it. But yeah, so far in my test playthroughs, this has never really turned out to be much of a problem, like the fuel situation. So maybe it's a little more forgiving than Sunless Sea, because that definitely was an initial factor in that game where you were liable to lose a captain or two just by dint of running out of fuel on the high seas or under seas. Now, where are we? We are close. Yeah, we are really close. So we'll try to avoid these guys who are maybe soldiers, maybe deserters. They are coming for us, so we don't want no part of them. And here we are, the City of Keys, which will permit us to explore a little, visit our lodgings and see whether we can do anything by way of poetry here. So let's visit our dwellings, or rather, let's first get our bearings. The City of Keys. You know the streets here, the accents, the looming skyline, even the omnipresent sense of menace is, in its own way, comfortingly familiar. This is a city of brimming possibilities, each stamped out as quickly as it forms. This is the city that opened 1,000 doors, that founded extracellular colonies. This is the most prolific producer of keys in all the house. But all things must be measured against their cost. Orphanstown, the howling pits, and most of all the factory, squatting vastly at the center of the city, a bloated concrete tumor swollen to the side of a dozen castles. No matter how far you go, you will bring all of this with you. Okay, visit our dwellings. An old and imposing house on Revenant Street with a vegetable garden and even a small servant's quarters. Everyone who owns a house on this street is important with a capital I, and the City Watch patrol it rigorously. We can pick up a fetch mirror, which is an item that will allow us to, well, fast travel in a sense. You pick up your fetch mirror, wearing gloves of course, and take it back to the cargo hold. This should come in useful if you need to get somewhere in a hurry. We can even have a look at what the fetch mirror does, I think, in our inventory. With these you can leap into the mirror-wise. Just step into the glass. Don't be alarmed when the mirror shatters. Just ensure you have a second through which to return. Allows you to instantly travel between large cities that you've already visited. One use only. And we can see if a poem is available for us to be written. We may not have the recollections or memories for it. We have Fragments of Epiphany, so we can actually write a transcendent ballad. Awesome! I really would like to show this off. So you sit at your desk and strive furiously to compose yourself before you can compose anything else. Your pen shakes in excitement, images flicker through your mind, patterns, echoes, reflections. You set your pen down, exhausted, unsure how much time has passed. Your transcendent ballad is titled Unremembered Joy. You have written a dramatic verse. The poem is 502 lines long, split into 13 stanzas. Extract. O eldritch joy, so unremembered and a gleam, fey brink of joy that knows no free will, the fey brink of joy that knows no schemes, such was the fringe whose delight was so still. I'll leave you to interpret this, and I'll just acknowledge that we've gained 8 apprehensions from this and spent 3 days writing this, and we've gained the distinction of being a poet. Fantastic. We can also invite our crew to our house and spend a nice bit of time with them, so maybe let's invite... Oh, can we not invite Rutherford? Well, that's a shame. Let's invite... Panorama Vault. Sounds like a fantastic name. Panorama has brought you a cracked bottle of whiskey and a cake. She thrusts them into your hands as you open the door. For you, she mumbles. The good eye glares, the other, as always, looks at something behind your head. I like your home, but the walls are on fire. You should get that scene too. When she finishes the last slice of cake, she stands up to leave. You're a lovely young thing, she says. You're going to make a graveyard very happy one day. Oh god. We can also rest and recover for 15 guineas, which I think is relatively forgiving, so this will impact our sanity and make us feel somewhat better, so steady on there, we're all fine. We took some hull damage. The repairs of the hull are actually relatively expensive. This is 89 guineas, but it'll heal it back up to full, so I guess we can always gauge whether or not it makes sense to do this or not. And yeah, let's leave the city quickly, because one thing I would also like to still have a look at is the conversations with your crew members, since we have a chance that way to elaborate a little on the plot lines that are attached to them, since for instance Rutherford here has his own personal story that he gets you to pursue if you let him. And we'll start off by whiskey has been going missing from your cargo. Rutherford probably knows a thing or two about it. As you walk into a surgery, Rutherford hastily shoves a half-empty bottle under the table. What's the matter? He asks, struggling to focus his gaze. You stubbed your toe or something? And we can express concern about the unhealthy amount of his drinking. The cheek of it! With excruciating difficulty, he lights himself a cigarette. I save your bones how many times, and this is the thanks I get? I don't have a problem, the world has a problem. He tips forward, prodding you gently in the stomach. Go on, fire me. Who are you going to replace me with? Someone licensed by the Surgeons Association? That's a joke, that is. What's wrong with the Surgeons Association? Rutherford gathers himself, puts the bottle to one side and takes a deep draw on his cigarette. Where do I start, he mutters. I had a doctor before my name once, not exactly a respected physician, but at least I had a license. Unfortunately, I had an attack of conscience. You see, another drag on the cigarette. The Surgeons Association is stealing hearts. In a metaphorical romantic sense? No, in a literal wake up after surgery with a much roomier chest sense, says Rutherford. If their patients are poor enough and powerless enough, the association steals their hearts, he says, leaving the patient with a shorter life expectancy and a hollow ribcage, but still alive somehow, through occult interventions, I suspect. Why would they do that? Rutherford laughs darkly. It's a nice little money earner. Sell them to the factory. He nods in the vague direction of your kinetopede's heartlight. How do you think they make those things? Pigs' hearts? No, it needs to be human and it needs to be alive. Makes the whole preserving our sanity through something that is cut from a real-life human being all a little dark, doesn't it? What can we do about this? How do you know this? What can we do about this? Well, I went to the City Watch, but they just locked me up, says Rutherford. Then Holsworth, the chairman of the association, came into the cell, offered me a lot of money to keep quiet. So of course I took it, because what am I, an idiot? He knocks back another nip of whiskey. His face is blotched and he's slurring his words. How do you know this? I treated a patient without a heart, says Rutherford. A little old lady, sweetest woman you ever met. So I did some digging on her behalf and dug a little too deep. Found that this was a common money-making scheme among the top brass at the association. I was just too low-rung to know about it. He knocks back a second swig. He stumbles, drops a cigarette and tries to put it out with his boot, but misses and kicks you in the shins. Leave him to his drinking. Rutherford raises the bottle to you in mock salute as you leave. Maybe the association was doing people a favor, he says. A heart can be an affliction. And we have improved our relationship with him. He keels over and keeps drinking on the floor. And we can later on pursue another train of conversation with him that will permit us to actually look into all of this heartless business. We can also see more about this in the concerns here, which is our quest log, for lack of a better word. We have a few other interesting little tidbits here that we can look at, including our poems that we've written and the distinctions that we've earned. And all in all, this is a very and incredibly well-written game with more than enough of its own twist on the concept that made Sunless Sea such a spectacular success and such a joy to play. And I feel like this is a worthy partner to that idea of a game that allows you to explore and carve a story and just meet interesting characters, explore their personal stories, and just create your own little novel inside a video game. It's going to be occupying my time quite a bit. As I said, this is not the start of a Let's Play series, but I urge you to give this game a look, and if you'd like to pick it up on Steam, I think that's probably a pretty solid choice. Again, with the caveat that I received this key for free, so I may be a little more favorably inclined to judge this game, but I think even with that in mind, and putting it as neutrally as I possibly can, this game is great. And I'm looking forward to playing some more of it. And I hope you do too. So thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you next time, and bye for now.